Hi, I'm Suhas. It's great to be at this event, TEDx at BIT. Well, sort of, because I'm not there. And I must say that among all the things that one has missed during this pandemic and the lockdowns, uh, this one is right up there because this is my alma mater, and it would have been such a great way to turn up uh, again on campus and have this conversation with all of you in person. Uh, but such are the times, and so everything has to be sort of these days. Um, I look forward to a simpler time when I could turn up, and without further ado and further lament, let me just start. I thought very quickly we'll talk through the story since I was last here. In 2001, I went to IIM Calcutta from BIT Durg. In 2003, I joined Coca-Cola. Loved those days. Was there for a good 2 3 years, 3 years rather. Then was at Nokia very briefly. Some of you may be too young to immediately place Nokia. It used to be a big phone company, and I must say that I was too junior for me to have played any role in its subsequent decline and fall. Um, After Nokia, I turned entrepreneur, something I'd long wanted to do through all those years, and started my first company with a couple of friends from IIM Cal. Exited that in another 3 years and started Hector Beverages, for which I'm still best known because the brand Paperboat was a very big success. Uh, so, and after that, I decided to take some time out, drift around, see what's happening, figure out what I want to do. Then got into a social sort of enterprise, which I found quite interesting as a use case that how technology can be used to make up for the access deficit in healthcare. So we were trying to build a platform that connects villages in UP and MP to doctors and pharmaceuticals and pathology labs in the city. Uh, it was while doing that business that I started noticing a lot of that classic wall painting which talks about men's sexual wellness. You may have noticed it too. Like if you look out of a train window or on the highway, uh, you see this whole story of Guptro, Guptrogi Mile. I was utterly fascinated by that, partly because so little seemed to have changed in that category from when I was a kid to now. Like so much else has changed in India, but nothing seemed to have changed there. Why is it so static? Is a question that bothered me. Started investigating more, and then started this company called Misters. We are a men's sexual wellness brand. It's a fascinating space. That's what I'm doing these days, building that company. Anyway, this conversation is not meant to be a plug for Misters. Maybe that's some other talk at some other stage. Um Before I start, I'll do a quick rant. I think quick, I'm saying only hopefully. Sometimes my rants are longer than I would like them to be. But a quick rant about the theme. It says, imagine, inspire, invent. So now, uh, it's a catchy title, right? Like there's alliteration there. Um, I must say that I have a bit of a problem with alliteration, especially when it is so pithy and for something so I won't say big. I mean, that's a bit grand to assume that one's life is big, but life is complex. And when one tries to, as it were, distill, lessons from this complex life, mine and yours, I'm not saying mine alone, all life is, um, into something so pithy and so neat and so clean. you should always have at least one red flag up in your head and investigate that alliteration bit more closely. So the three I's there make it so neat. It makes it striking. It has higher probability of registering. Like some of you will study marketing and then will say things like 5 P's, and so on and so forth, right? Like management jargon is full of acronyms, often alliteration. But the neatness that comes in some of these articulations is such that you should think it can't, not everything can necessarily fit that, right? I think it's an important point. There's difference between complex things and complicated things. Complex things are fuzzy, like the input could change the output, which will change the input a little bit, and so there are these loops, and how what happens is always tricky to say. Very often we analyze success and say this is why this person was successful, but it is difficult to argue that success, or whichever way we define it, has come from pursuing a kind of strategic A, B, C, like almost as if it were a game of chess. It's not that, because most often attribution, at least one strong thing that success can be attributed to, as they say in football, like right place, right time, right? You have to, and which means it's very difficult to say exactly what this quality was, which led to success. So I have this one quick grouse about alliteration and anything that sounds pithy and neat. That is most likely not true. The other quick bit I wanted to talk about was that this format itself imposes some kind of neatness in the structure, because I when I've been conferred this role to pass on wisdom, then I have to take that role seriously, and then I have to pass on something which, in a certain format, in a certain time, registers, right? Otherwise, I might not be meeting the expectation of the seeker of knowledge. So it's that bit is also tricky, because what it means is, if you think about it, that people look back at their own life and say they assume a lot of causation for success, and they externalize the reasons for any failure, or they just don't talk about those. But no lived experience that we truly know of, is that simple. So this causation thing is another tricky one in this format, where I could say, yeah, and then we did this, and so this happened. When in real life, we hardly ever see that happening. Like, it's fuzzy, and you keep trying things, and certain things work, certain things don't. And till you sort of make sense of it, and you have a certain moment, which if you look at, you say, oh, did I get lucky there? Was it this? Causation, looking back at one's own life, is very tricky. It's also very tricky in the studying of history, but that's not what we're discussing. I just wanted to give this sort of disclaimer that any giver of knowledge, you need to be, you need to have a healthy skepticism of what you're receiving in a format such as this. Yes, it was. I hope it was a quick rant. That is the rant. Two parts to the rant: alliteration, too neat, and this whole construct of passing on wisdom. You need to be skeptical of what I am going to say. Otherwise, yeah. Good. Moving on, keeping it quick. So, what I've decided, that instead of dealing with the three-part theme for the event, I'll just, sort of following on from what I said, I'll just share with you three unrelated principles that seem to have emerged in my experience as an entrepreneur. So, and even in these, you have to be skeptical that, oh, this might not hold. Anyway, I just thought I'll share these three things I'm reasonably sure of have mattered, and I've learned in hindsight. All three probably fall in the category of what I wish I would know when I was a young person. Not exactly, but has that quality. So the first bit is about becoming an entrepreneur, and like so many people in your class, among your classmates, among your batchmates, you will find, like seniors and juniors, you will find a lot of people have an idea for entrepreneurship or a desire to be an entrepreneur. Those are two different things, but people, like, entrepreneurship is popular. A lot of people express an urgent present desire to be an entrepreneur, and the typical articulation of the statement is, but I can't do it right now because. Now, what I've noticed is that in if you talk to anybody about becoming an entrepreneur and what is holding them back. So right now, I'm not saying whether they'll become successful or not, but just simply saying what people want and why are they not doing it. The single biggest factor I've noticed is EMIs. These are fixed expenses. Someone is looking forward to receiving this amount from you. Therefore, you need your own predictable cash flow. Therefore, if you are getting some salary on the one hand or working towards an unreliable cash flow on the other, you will go with some salary on this hand just to make sure that you're covered for your liabilities. This is obviously important. Now, up to a point, you can't do much about it. You might have an education loan and you just work with it, right? But there are certain loans which are optional and massive and culturally imposed, right? Like there is a cultural expectation, which will be a cultural expectation that you will feel maybe, like by the time you are in your late 20s, definitely in your early 30s, that get a house, buy a house. The house EMI goes on and on and on, and I think is one of the most significant reasons why people who want to be entrepreneurs don't become entrepreneurs. So my first bit of advice, when it comes time, if you haven't become an entrepreneur already and you're thinking of buying the house, don't. Or buy the house and forget about being an entrepreneur. I'm not saying one is superior to the other. It's just that the two, especially for you in your 20s, they don't seem to go well together. There's hardly any overlap. Second bit of advice is actually from already having become an entrepreneur. Now, again, this is where a lot of analysis happens, and a lot of people say, I attribute my success to this or to that. Among the entrepreneurs I've known, and for myself, the one attribute I think that helps you be successful, again, is not sufficient, but increases your likelihood of success, is failing well. So now what I mean by failing well is not taking big shots, and big is relative to what resources you have. So if you have a significant set of resources, whatever it is, I mean, it's all relative to where you are and what your business plan is, but do not bet on that one perfect idea. Like, take your time, try smaller things, test smaller things. There are and you give yourself enough to iterate, like iteration 1, 2, 3, same resource pool, but instead of taking one shot at what you are doing, try and take several shots. This is where I feel I've learned the most, and this is something I definitely wish I knew earlier, because there are simpler ways of answering the question inefficiently. So very often I see startups saying, oh, but if we don't do it this way, then the customer won't be satisfied. Now, yes, customer satisfaction is very important, not undermining it, but trying to go live faster with an idea, it could be a service, it could be a product, whatever it is you're doing, trying to go live faster, finding out whether there's a customer who wants it, like is someone willing to pay money for it. That usually is where the biggest uncertainty lies in business. So if you address it with the least diminishing of your resources, which means you haven't spent as much time. If you spend time, you'll end up burning through your resources, your capital. So fail fast, fail quick. Like, that is very important. So There is no guarantee through better analysis, research thinking that something you are trying to do will definitely work. It will always be a very probabilistic. So the important thing is to play it several times. Same idea, but how you are doing it, what you are doing to take it out, and usually these questions will be on the demand side. It is better to try several things than one. The third is have a narrative for your business model. This is very important for people with an engineering background, definitely for MBAs, that very often all of our business thinking tends to go towards the numbers, like only the numbers. So we say, oh, how can we model this? What is happening in this business in the US? Let's look at this report. If something has X demand in US, it will have Y demand in India, because in another category I see a similar ratio. There's a lot of this modeling goes on, and obviously for the purpose of this discussion I am dumbing it down, and it can get very sophisticated. It has its place, it tells you a lot of things, but again it does not make any sense unless and until the business has a narrative. What is the story of the business? That matters equally. And is the story compelling enough? And you get that sense, right? Like if you tell somebody a story, you know whether that story worked. So watch out for that. It is not a soft thing. It is qualitative, yes, but assuming that the qualitative is soft and the quantitative is hard and strong, and that is what one should go for, is not fair. So have your story, tell your story, and look at data. But but for entrepreneurship, it is very important to have narratives to go with your business model, because when a narrative starts clicking, that's when amazing things happen. An attempt at precision in a business model does not have the same return. Like if you say this category in India is $1.8 billion, or if you say it is $2.4 billion, and the right answer is somewhere in between, or maybe it is even $1.2 billion or $2.8 billion, that category size won't be the big reason why your business may not succeed, right? Like those do not matter. What will matter is what you can get more insight from is when you go around telling your story to possible investors, friends, whoever you're talking to, right? Like it doesn't matter, or potential customers, whatever, consumers, whoever you're talking to. And that depends on the business. Does the story connect? And that is a part which people end up underplaying. That was part 3. And so just on the clock, I've completed this. Thank you very much for having me, TEDx at BIT Durg, and my best wishes to everyone.